Last night, the Toronto Raptors landed another comfortable victory against the Washington Wizards, eventually cruising in the fourth quarter with another great performance from Norman Powell. So, when everybody is healthy, does Norman Powell simply have to start for this Raptors team? Let's get into it. Welcome to the Raptors Roundup, segment on the channel where we round up the Raptors game from the night before on Amateur Sports, the channel where you get NBA content with a focus on the Toronto Raptors. So if you like what you see from today's video and you want more of myself talking about the Raptors in videos just like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Show your support to the channel as we move towards 3,000 subscribers. We also do a lot of live stream watch-alongs on the channel, like the one we did last night for the game against the Washington Wizards. Check out all the fantastic content you missed out on by not being at the stream. Boucher at the rim. Oh my goodness! Chris Boucher, bonjour! Wow, some great content there that you missed out on by not being there for the stream. Make sure you're there tonight for the live watch along for the game against the Boston Celtics. Very excited for that one, but let's get into our Raptors roundup for today. So what we're going to do is go through a brief overview of the game, take you through a synopsis of proceeding, and then leave you with 3 key takeaways to move on with for the future. So the Raptors head into this one without OG Anunoby yet again. Is something we are growing a little bit accustomed to, but he was questionable for the game tonight. So I am absolutely praying that he is available for the game against the Celtics, because he is going to be very important to stop that Celtics offense, the amount of weapons that they have. And the Celtics have seemingly had our number in the regular season over the last year or so. So definitely need OG Anunoby back. We also didn't have Yuta Watanabe for this one, which kind of sucked because it was supposed to be the Battle of Japan, Rui Hachimura and Yuta Watanabe, but didn't quite see it. But the Raptors still had to roll, still had to come in, and this should be a comfortable win theoretically going into it. Washington have the fastest pace of play in the NBA, and they also have the formidable backcourt of Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook. So the Raptors really need to run in transition on defense, something that they struggled with for the first 2.5 quarters of the Memphis game and for the duration of the Atlanta Hawks game. So that was really my only concern, but I knew the Raptors' talent had the edge to win this game. So let's get into our synopsis here. So in the first quarter, the Raptors have done a great job over the last little while, over the last little pocket of games, to start games well. They come out the gates hot. And a lot of that has to do with Norman Powell, his ability to knock down shots at will in first quarters. I mean, Norman Powell is the MVP of first quarters this season. He's shooting well above 60% from the field in first quarter settings, and he's always good for like 10 points just from the first quarter to get the Raptors really out of the gate for games. And this great first quarter play for the entire team really continued here. And Pascal Siakam, we talked about it on stream, there was no good defensive matchup that the Wizards had to throw at him. So Pascal Siakam with favorable matchups all night, he really had a chance to be aggressive and go attack the rim, and that is exactly what he did. He started it early on in this game, got to the rim at will. Rui Hachimura, Davis Bertans, whoever had to guard him, was not quite a match for him, and Pascal Siakam had a great night that started in the first quarter. The Raps were knocking down shots, and the Washington offense was a little bit slow early on. Bradley Beal was missing a few of his gimmies that he would normally hit, and Russell Westbrook came out the gates. He stumbled out the gates, let's say. He was not shooting well from the field. Started the game 1 for 7 from the field. And, eventually later on picked it up, but it was not a very good night for Russell Westbrook in terms of his shooting. The Raptors seemingly were rolling, and I knew our bench would still be able to, seize the opportunity of this game to take advantage, because Washington do not have a great bench, not a great amount of depth. So this is just the amount of talent the Raptors have should be able to overpower. And the Raptors were up big at the end of the first quarter. In the second quarter, the Raptors did start to struggle a little bit. They afforded the Washington Wizards a bit of a run for themselves. It was a 14-point lead for the Raptors, and all of a sudden it was only a 4-point lead. The Washington Wizards went on a 10-0 run, and all of a sudden the complexity of the game kind of changed, so the Raptors called a timeout. And the Raptors, they started it here, but they started in the second quarter, but throughout the entire game, they managed to come out hot and make big plays right out of timeouts. And this one, as soon as the Washington Wizards made it a 4-point game, the Raptors went on a little run of their own after the timeout. It was quite peculiar that Washington were struggling with Russell Westbrook on the court. Then for the 2-minute period that he went out, they go on a 10-0 run, and then he comes back in after the timeout, and then the Raptors go on another run again. Not a fantastic night, not a really, really not a good half for Russell Westbrook in this one. Our bench was great in this one as well. Boucher was contributing yet again, finding that early season form. It's great to see Boucher maybe finding a little bit of consistency. Hopefully he can maintain this level. And shout out to Terrence Davis, came in off the bench and was hitting shots, making plays. Big contributor in the first half. Also, DeAndre Bembry is really growing into his role with the Raptors. I mean, surely going to get another contract with the Raptors after this season because he comes on and makes a difference off the bench. He provides that defense that we wanted from Stanley Johnson, that doggishness that we were expecting when Rondae Hollis-Jefferson was there last year, and he stepped into that role. But what he has differently than like the likes of Stanley Johnson or Rondae Hollis-Jefferson is more finesse on offense. He can shoot the ball a little bit better and get to the rim and be crafted at the rim, with a higher degree of effectiveness than Rondae Hollis-Jefferson and Stanley Johnson. So props to Bembry for growing into this role with the Raptors. Pascal Siakam is really starting to find his confidence from three, which is an absolutely welcome sight to not have to just force him in the paint every time, just to spread out a little bit, make guys D him up. And the Raptors offense continued to roll. After that little hiccup in the middle where it was a 4-point game, the Raptors once again are up big and they have over 70 points at the end of the first half. The offense is absolutely rolling here. For the Raptors to be successful and win this game at halftime, just more of the same. Just eliminate those cold spells, allowing the Washington Wizards to go on that sort of 10-0 run, and it's going to be a comfy win for the Raptors. So we move into the third quarter, and we weren't able to completely avoid those little spells of 2 to 3 minutes where our offense goes cold, and Washington, who play with such a fast-paced offense, can chip away. And it happened again here. What happened in the second quarter where we afforded the Wizards a big run for themselves, it happened again, and Washington got themselves back in the game. But then Nick Nurse calls a timeout, finally uses timeouts correctly in this one, and the Raptors blow the Wizards away out of the timeout, go back to a big lead. Like the Raptors, they never were within a one-possession game. The Raptors were consistently dominating this game. Maybe the Wizards made it a little bit close, but then the Raptors, when they needed big shots to fall, when they needed guys to chip in and hit the big shot to stop the run, there were a lot of guys who answered the call, like Lowry, who was great, like Norman Powell, like Siakam, Fred VanVleet, Boucher. All of those guys were great in this game. Our three-point shooting was phenomenal all game. I believe it finished at about 57% from three. And the Raptors, it was a very good trait to develop. And it seemed to be developing very recently in games where they can hit those big shots when they need it. Early on this season when they started 2-8, those big shots were nowhere to be found. There was nobody who stepped in and made that big shot to overcome the run. But now we're seeing it a lot more often. That is why the Raptors are starting to win more games more often. It is going to be insanely difficult to put Norman Powell on the bench when OG Anunoby is healthy again. How do you tell Norm, after the way he's playing right now and had another great game last night, how can you tell him he has to come off the bench again? The way he plays first quarters, the best shooting player in the NBA in the first quarter, I believe, shooting above 60%. How do you tell him to come off the bench? I think that Nick Nurse really needs to find a way to start that guy. The Raptors closed out the third very well, like they did every quarter here, and are comfy going into the fourth quarter. And in the fourth quarter, despite Russell Westbrook having a pretty awful game, starts this quarter pretty hot, knocking down 2 threes, and the Wizards put together a little run yet again to get themselves within touching distance of the Raptors. Never quite got that one possession, but enough to make the Raptors a little bit nervous. And Russell Westbrook eventually gets fouled on a 3 in a very tight game by Pascal Siakam, and Nick Nurse finally uses a challenge in a good setting, a good time to use his challenge on a Pascal Siakam foul attempt on Russell Westbrook's 3, and the foul gets overturned, and that basically stopped any sort of momentum that the Washington Wizards had for the rest of the game, and the Raptors completely steamroll them in the fourth quarter. It was about 119-110, and the Raptors go on a 10-0 run for themselves, eventually put themselves up by 20, a sizable cushion. We get to garbage time. The Raptors close this one out very, very comfortably. They put up 137 points in the end. That is the 5th game in a row that they have put up at least 120 points. There are great signs that we're seeing for this Toronto Raptors team. Great stuff from the group again. Siakam was fantastic yet again with 26 points. Norman Powell also great with 24 points. And shout out Siakam and Fred VanVleet for being a plus 27 on the night, chipping into insanely good winning basketball when they were on the floor. That is 2 wins in a row for this Raptors team. They are 1 game back of 500. They occupy the 5th seed at the time of recording, and hopefully they rested enough because they're 0-3 in back-to-backs and they play the Boston Celtics tonight. Be there for the watch along. I'm excited for this game, but I'm also worried for this game. The Celtics seem to have our number in regular season play. Now that the synopsis is finished, let's get into the 3 takeaways of the game. The first key takeaway is that over the last couple of weeks, the Raptors have played fantastic first and fourth quarters. I think the best testament to that is the game against the Brooklyn Nets. Came out of the gates flying, maybe stumbled a little bit in the second and third quarter, but then closed out very well in the fourth quarter. Same with the game against the Wizards. They had a good night as a whole, but outstanding first quarter and outstanding fourth quarter. And the Memphis Grizzlies game, they were good in the first. It was a close game. And then the fourth quarter, they took over the game. The fact that we can make the fourth quarter a great place for us to dominate and start to pull away with advantages is great for winning basketball. So props to the Raptors for figuring out those fourth quarter woes that we saw early on in the season. Second key takeaway is that when Norman Powell starts, he is fantastic. He shoots above 60% from the field in first quarters, can always put up 9 to 10 points in the first quarter, put up 9 last night. How can you not start this guy? I'm going to revisit that point because when OG Anunoby comes back, possibly tonight, how can you put the best first quarter player in the NBA statistically right now on the bench? I think that the Raptors really need to experiment with starting Norman Powell and having one of our point guards come off the bench. Third key takeaway is that the Raptors are 0-3 in back-to-back so far this season, and didn't really get to garbage time until the last 3 minutes of this game, so there wasn't a ton of rest for the guys. We did use the bench a little bit with Boucher, Bembry, and TD getting quite a bit of minutes, but you got to look at this like the Raptors. You got to come out to play. You got to have the effort because the Boston Celtics will punish you if you don't show up to play. We saw that earlier this season. Let's go make ourselves 500. Let's go solidify our playoff position in the Eastern Conference. I mean, I knew all along. I've been saying all along, this is a playoffs team. I'm sure I was worried early on, but I knew this team had too much talent for that, and they are showing exactly that. Let's go out and get another win tonight against the Boston Celtics. What are all of your thoughts and opinions on this game? Do you agree or disagree with what I said over the course of this video? Let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. But that wraps up for me for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you are still here, please like the video if you like, and subscribe to Amateur Sports for more content just like this. We're getting close to 2,100 subs, and then we do want to push on to 3,000 subs by the start of April. Let's help make that happen for the channel. Show your support. Tell your friends. Let's get this channel going. But thank you again for being here. The Raptors again playing the Celtics tonight. Hope to see you guys to watch along. It was so fun last night. But that wraps up for me for today. At the end of the day, I believe what I say. If you disagree, that is okay. We'll see you again next time for another video.